This week on the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast, a brewery offers a reward to find their stolen van. We talk about the SAT adversity score and our special guest, Gary Moore, flying instructor and commercial private pilot. All that and more on this episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast, where it's two guys take on life, liberty, and the pursuit of gravy, and you, the listener, are getting a degree in common sense. We are broadcasting from the Busted Nuckle studio right here in beautiful downtown historic Concord, North Carolina. I'll be your host, Biggin, and how about you? We've got a great show lined up for you as always, but before we begin, let me introduce you to the second half of this flaky biscuit. That's right, I am talking about the pride of Anderson, South Carolina, but most of you probably know him best as the Silver Tongue one, 2016's honorable mention Dark Phoenix of the universe, the inventor of the redneck egg roll. Give it up on old mic number one, it's Mojo!
Let's see here. Episode 101. 101.
101 Dalmatians.
Lesson 101. When you're 42, never trust a fart.
God bless.
Pass it along.
Can I tell you that? You could not have spoken wiser words, my friend. I did that the other day, and I made a regret.
I never roll the dice anymore.
Oh.
Never.
I mentioned Dark Phoenix. That's what's on your Hardee's cup. There's a new movie coming out?
I guess. I don't know. I'm too cheap to go to the movie theater because, it's just about as cheap to go to an NFL football game than to go to the movie. So
Sure.
I don't do that anymore. Anyway, hey, appreciate you guys listening in. Like I said, this is episode 101. Appreciate the ones that are going out there and blowing up our back catalog of episodes. I see a lot of people going back through the previous episodes and checking those out and enjoying them, I hope. You can reach us on our Facebook page at Southern Fried Philosophy. Our website is southernfriedphilosophy.com. You can actually play our audio from our links there on the website. You can interact with us there, send us a message. We are work-friendly for most of the part, I guess. Maybe politics aside, but we're very work friendly. Also, you can check us out on iHeartRadio, Buzzsprout if you want to get a link there directly from Buzzsprout, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Evidently, there's some app called Pocket Cast. So I've been seeing a lot of users on Pocket Cast.
That's a good app, and we don't get paid for mentioning that, but that is one of the only ones that I know of that will show producer Brian's pictures and whatnot and do markers and all that. It costs, I think, $3.99, but it's well worth it just to see his pictures because he posts some funny ones on the
That's right, he does.
podcast.
Anyway, so you can check us out on any of those podcast apps. If you can, just go give us a like, a subscribe, a review. The reviews are mainly the big thing, especially with iTunes. iTunes loves to see the ratings and reviews because that's how you move up in the old algorithms. I can't talk today. Do that. You can find us on Twitters and Instagram at SFP Radio. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SFP Radio. Also, our Patreon link.
Yeah, like I say all the time, it is free to you, but it is not free to us. We do incur some expenses. We want to say thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers, and please join the family. We want to do some things. Want to get some microphones so we can head out, do some really cool things out and about and not just stuck in the studio here. So if you could please help us out, go to our Patreon link, patreon.com/SFP Radio, and you can join the family there. We want to give a shout out to some of our new listeners at Maple Shade Township, New Jersey. Now, that sounds like a lovely place, Maple Shade Township.
Is that a retirement home?
I feel like it could be a retirement home.
I'm okay with that.
That would be nice, though.
Yeah,
I could get down with some Maple Shade.
We may have to Google Earth Maple Shade, Jersey, just to see. Because, when I think of Jersey, I think of Yonkers. That's actually in New York. But I think of just the bad parts of Jersey, I bet, too. So I never think of what actually the state is. They're called the Garden States. I mean, I never think of the greenery or anything like that. I think of just that industrial apocalypse, the former industry there.
Or just all the cemeteries for all the dead people or all the New Yorkers killed, the gangsters.
The good thing is Governor Inslee just signed into law today in Oregon, and I'm sure it'll probably come to other states where you can actually compost a human body now.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
We're just getting violent, aren't we?
It's going to be green. Saving the earth.
Speaking of, another new listener from Inman, South Carolina. Sounds painful. Inman, South Carolina.
Actually, Inman's about an hour and a half south of here.
How about you? So. Just right down the road. And then Buckhannon, West Virginia. So evidently your exploits over there in West Virginia might be paying off.
How about that? I do love me some West Virginia, especially the Nitro Cross Lanes area outside of Charleston with the casino. I'm was a frequent flyer there, but business is too busy right now.
7-Eleven, even Bacto Little Joe. That's all I know. We also did a question of the week a long time ago. Here's one from Mark Mills. Why are there interstates in Hawaii? Interstates in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a logical explanation for what an interstate actually is. So go ahead.
While we believe Hawaii's interstate system was created for the sole purpose of annoying the late George Carlin, the name is actually a misnomer. Not all interstates physically go from one state to another. The name merely implies that the roads receive federal funding. There you go.
But, you know, the words we use sometimes, I don't know if you remember the old comedian Gallagher.
Oh, yeah, the watermelon smash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had a little bit about why do they call apartments when they're actually together?
Yeah.
Or why do they call a parkway? Why do you drive on the parkway and park on the driveway?
Yeah. I love those things. I can't get enough of them.
Yeah, I mean, why do our words not mean exactly, what they say? So I guess interstate would be a great example of that.
Another example is I couldn't care less. Actually, you could care less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of phrases and words like that. Irregardless is one of them.
Boy, I've said that enough. Then I realized, hey, buddy, you're not like 4. You need to look that up.
What drives my old lady nuts is when people misspell lose.
O-O-O-S-E?
Yeah, loose. Yeah, because I did that for years, and she would correct me. It finally stuck, I guess, in my typing. So there's a lot of those things out there.
Duke lost enough that you figured it out.
They loosed.
All right, so I'm going to ask you like I ask you every week, Mojo, how you be doing?
I'm doing great. Just getting geared up for the summer heat that's coming through.
Hey,
and
buddy.
all the people that complained it was too cold will now be complaining that it's too hot.
Sure, I'm one of those. I never complained that it was too hot or too cold. It's just always too hot.
I hear you.
I sweat so much.
Well, I do too, and I don't mind it, but I guess like you said, you can only take off so much, but you can always add on.
Sure, when you're a biggin, you can't take off too much. I'm going to actually try that Axe body spray that, quote, scientifically brings your body temperature down 11 degrees. I'm going to try
11 degrees.
That's what it says.
That's almost like hypothermia.
Oh, good Lord, I'd be willing to try it.
Wow. Don't put that on in the middle of the polar vortex or whatever.
Sure.
Because then your body temp would be like 60 or something like that, which is technically dead. So
also, just a heads up to our listeners, go easy if you're going to go out this summer. Start running or walking and being more active. Be careful on how much icy hot you use. Ooh. I'm not saying for my own experience, but hey, buddy, you got to be careful with that stuff.
Especially where it goes. And especially where you touch after you've applied such icy hot. Yeah, you never, I remember one time I had a lower back problem, and I applied the icy hot right in my lower back.
Yeah.
Well, after several hours outside doing yard work, the said icy hot started to sweat and run down my rear end crack.
Hey, buddy.
So, yeah. What a funny feeling that is.
Or, you put some on your knee, and then you forget and you itch a certain place of your body. That doesn't.
I used to have new cooks would do that while they're like dicing up jalapenos or whatever, and then go to the bathroom, rub their eye, or go use the restroom, and you hear the
hi Chihuahua.
Yeah,
Is that
something like that. Even the most proficient American with perfect English would yell out "I Chihuahua" or "I caramba." So
you're right. We enjoyed your daughter's birthday party this past week. That was quite fun.
That was probably well, besides me being in the doghouse, but that was probably the most stress-free birthday we've had for either one of our kids in years. So
Yeah.
that was great.
Here was the handle for us is we got your daughter's invitation, and it was at this past Saturday. And then we got another kid's birthday invitation also for this Saturday. In my head, I'm like, oh, heck no, I'm not doing 2 birthday parties. But we start looking side by side, and they're the exact same place at the same exact time. I'm like, hot dang, this is perfect.
We timed that.
It was perfect. So we were able to go to the spare time.
Yeah, spare time bowling alleys over in, if you're in our neck of the woods, it's called Huntersville is the area. And I mean, did a great job. The hostess they assigned to our party was named Bianca. She was a little cutie and did a phenomenal job, keeping up with.
She did a great job.
Yeah, she did. She was running all over the place and
taking care of the kids, coming take care of us.
Yeah. But I mean, all the people we had there, I mean, it broke down to be like $5 a person, I think is what I estimated the cost.
For real?
Yeah. So
Oh
that
my
included
gosh.
the bowling, the laser tag, the games, and
Holy cow, that
pizza. So
I had no idea.
yeah, it was actually.
I'm gonna go there and have a party for me.
There you go.
That's fantastic.
But surprisingly, their pizza was not bad.
Not bad.
It was not Chuck E. Cheese crap pizza.
Right, it was an upgrade.
Yeah. The beer was cold. We had a few beers and met some interesting people, so it was a good time.
Yeah. My foster kid, Squishy the redheaded rascal, he went and he went to the arcade and he got a giant ball. I don't know if you saw that.
I
or
did
not.
see that. Yeah,
It's a giant ball, bouncy ball. Had it was knobby on
little
one
nubs
side.
on it.
Yeah. He fell in love with this ball. Thought it was the greatest thing ever. Was sitting on it. Would play on it. Wake up in the morning, you hear it in the hallway.
Right.
And I was like, oh Lord. And yesterday, I was grilling out. We had some folks over. I was grilling some hot dogs, and he threw it up to me on the back deck, and I wasn't even thinking, and I had the spatula in my hand and hit it.
Ooh.
I've never seen a kid go from the happiest I'm at Walt Disney World to you just killed my puppy.
You strangled a puppy
That
underwater.
quick.
Wow.
It was devastating.
Now you got to go back and win some games with that ball.
So now I've got a phone call in to spare time to see how much one of those balls will cost.
Well, if you come in and buy it straight out, it's like $8. If you come play the games, it's probably like $37. So
Yeah, so I think I'll take the $8 and drive all the way to Huntersville and enjoy that. It's also Christmas Eve for me. I get a new phone coming in. I'll do a review and talk about that next week. But the OnePlus 7, so I'm all giddy like a little schoolgirl.
you're big into the tech stuff. So.
I used to be worse.
Oh,
like
really?
Now the new phone is like, that's great. I'm excited about it. I'm using my dad's loaner, which is 8-year-old phone.
Oh wow.
But
Does it flip? Does it flip up and have a keyboard?
it can if you try hard enough. But I am excited, so I'll do a review on it next week. So we're excited about that.
The whole new phone deal just it chaps my ass. I'm going to be straight up with you.
Sure.
Because like I'm with AT&T. Been with AT&T probably for 15 years now, and you have to go in. You can't buy a phone right out. You have to do that month to month plan.
Yeah.
And of course, phones now are so stinking expensive that I mean you're paying for these things for 24, 18, 24, 36 months. I mean, when's the last time you had a phone for 3 years? I mean, I think that the max I've ever had is 2 years because I kill them.
Yeah.
So I just don't like that whole new setup they have.
Sure. And I kept the last one I had for 3 years, so it's kind of up. But the one that I've got now is a OnePlus, and that's the name of the phone maker. And what I love about them is you buy the phone outright. The only carrier that they go through is T-Mobile, but you can put it on all the networks. And
so you can buy a jailbroken.
A jailbroke. You can just put it on any network. You buy it outright. And then the great thing about it is they release a phone probably every 6 months, and you can trade in your old phones for a new one at a pretty reasonable discount.
Really?
So we'll talk about pricing next week. But, yeah, you can buy a good one with a trade-in value for, $400. So
Interesting.
I think that's the way to go.
I wonder how much share they'll take from Apple or Samsung or whatever.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's an Android phone, so it's not going to be like competing up against Apple.
Yeah, but there'll be people like me that I've been on Apple now so long I can't remember life without it. But I would probably entertain just because that pisses me off. That I have to go in and pay the.
Yeah, I hate that.
I'd rather just pay straight out, get it over with, and done.
Yeah,
so.
It ain't no fun. All right, so we're going to go into some wacky news brought to you by Webmerized. If you need a clean, crisp website, go check out our friends at Webmerized.com. That is Webmerized.com. All right, so our first story is coming out of actually Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hey.
A brewery offers free beer for info about a stolen van. Police officers around the country may want to take note of what the Unknown Brewing Company in Charlotte, North Carolina is doing. They took to social media to ask for help in finding the company's delivery van after thieves stole it. In return for information, the company offered to throw a party for the person who first identifies where the van was located. They say, please help us, share with all your friends. Whoever finds it will brag on you and give you a cake party. Sure enough, more than a dozen tips came in, and 42 minutes later, the truck was found.
How about you? Wow. Yeah, I guarantee you it probably would have taken days for the cops to have solved this.
100%.
Even to get a detective out there to even interview would have probably been days.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Wow. Kudos to social media. See, that's the thing about social media. I kind of loathe and despise it. Mm-hmm. But then again, things like this where some good happens out of it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to meet the moron who stole the Unknown Brewing van, because that van is it's dark black and it has a neon green question mark with unknown writing all over the side of it.
Right.
I mean, you might as well have stolen a cop car with lights running.
Well, you probably will have a good chance because they are going to find the person to help them find the van. They're going to give him a cake party. I would say not so much as found the van, but more like returned the van. That would be my thought. Like, oh, wait, I get free beer out of this? Let me turn the sucker around.
Right, and I think when they recovered the van, they actually decided to go to social media again and actually sold all the beer in the van for $0.25 a bottle.
Oh, really?
Which
that was not
cool.
in the article. How about you?
Well, they probably had an insurance claim on it and received insurance funds for the stolen booze. So they probably just, I think they donated the quarter to charity or something like that. Maybe.
Well, how about you? All right. So our next one is, you think you've had a bad day. The parents of a newborn baby left their kid in a taxi on the way home. And Hamburg police in Germany said on Monday that the couple got their 1-year-old sibling out of the car, paid the taxi driver, and said goodbye. And they forgot that they left their own newborn baby kid in the taxi cab. The taxi driver drove away, actually parked it in an underground garage, went to lunch, came back, and then picked up another rider, and then found the baby then at that point. Good gracious.
There's so many morons in the story.
I mean, you're the newborn parent. You say, okay, I've got my kid out of the car. I've got the baby diaper bag out of the car. We'll just leave the kid there.
Hold on. I know, Mom, you've been carrying something in the front of your in your belly for 9 months. You're now missing that. Do you think?
Where did that?
Yeah.
They said that the driver quickly called the police after a quick check.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would too.
There's no report of what happened, what the parents were doing. Like, oh, yeah, you're right. We did forget that kid.
That must have been some good drugs at the hospital they gave her.
You think that kid's going to have abandonment issues already from day one?
My worry is the kid's going to get to be a month old and they're going to leave the baby somewhere else. I mean, because you're talking about the cab driver was gone, ate lunch. I mean, so probably hour and a half maybe of time elapsed, and not one call came from dispatch or whatever trying to find out where he's at. So maybe Hamburg, Germany needs to do IQ tests for awaiting parents.
Our last story, Pennsylvania high school administrators are suspended after a senior prank that involves live chickens. Toilet paper wreaks havoc. Now, when I read that article, the headline, I thought to myself, oh boy, this is involving live chickens. This should be good. Evidently, and I don't know how to say this, Shikellamy School District in North Cumberland, PA, they allow their high school students to do senior pranks with the administrators around. Evidently, 2 of those administrators just said, here's the keys, kids, go at it, enjoy it. Friday morning, when they came into school, the hallways were littered with toilet paper, desks were flipped, paperwork was destroyed, and 2 live chickens were running through the classrooms, and the teachers weren't pleased. So I ask you, what was the worst senior prank that either A, you have heard of, or that you participated in yourself?
Senior prank.
Or just any prank.
Well, senior prank, we had a rival team. We stole that mascot. Like they had a live.
Oh no!
What was it now? I think it was a rooster or something like that. We actually stole that rooster during. That was one of the pranks. We went over there and used temporary paint on the opposing school.
Oh wow!
Like their mascot out front. One of the best pranks was the fraternity I was in for a minute.
Okay.
Because I got kicked out of school.
Sure.
We threw a golf cart inside the guards' golf cart, that run around the university. Yeah. We threw the golf cart into the fountain.
Oh.
Then we also did several boxes of laundry detergent in that fountain too. So
goodness,
bubbles, bubbles upon bubbles. So.
Oh my goodness. The high school one that we did was we had a large truck of manure dumped in front of the front gate of the school. So that was a pleasant smell. That did eventually backfire at about 2:00 in the afternoon in Florida when all of us were smelling the poop smell in the hallways. We thought to ourselves, well, that was not a good idea. The other thing that and this was not a school prank, but we had my college dorm was an old converted hotel, and so the doors all opened inwards, but we got those the fire stoker things, you open up and then you push. Well, we got that filled it with ink, dry toner paper, dry ink.
Yeah, right.
And did it real fast so that it all flew out. But the closets, it was like an old hotel, so all the closets were right by the door. So one kid's clothes just got covered in paper or print toner, and we destroyed his entire wardrobe. It was not. I felt bad after that one.
Well, I'm not proud of this one, but in the dorms, we had a kid who went home for the weekend.
Oh no!
And several of us broke into his room and took recycled dormitory food.
Oh no!
And we put it in to-go boxes and left it in his room.
Oh, no!
Turned his heater on high, and then just let it crank all weekend.
Oh.
But the bad problem also with that is that it comes through the cracks and you can smell it. They had to repaint the room after that because it seeped at least into the walls. So, also my other favorite one is if you can take an old Barbasol or shaving cream can, freeze it, and you can actually cut it in half.
Huh.
And you toss it in someone's room, and then once it starts to thaw, all the foam. You can do that.
Is it like the crescent roll, Pillsbury crescent rolls, when you push the edge and it pops open?
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
The other one was there's a guy named Frank, and we did a thing called BYOM, as Bring Your Own Meat, and everybody we'd have a giant grill and people would just bring whatever they want. Well, that night was his birthday, and so we all hid in his room, and when he came in to get his stuff for BYOM, we tackled him, put a thing over his head, stripped him completely naked, except his boxers. He had his boxers on. Then duct taped his hands behind him, hogtied him, threw him in the back of a truck, went down to the local Walmart and this was when they had payphones, put 50 cents on the side, blindfolded him no less, and then slapped him on the rear and said, "There you go." And so Frank had to walk across the parking lot to get to Walmart in his boxers with 50 cents in his hand so that he could call somebody. When we got back to the dorm, we saw the police, and this was a small town. We saw the police just going by. We're heading to the Walmart, and we're like, uh-oh, we're in trouble, kids.
That's right.
So that was a good time. Sorry, Frank.
I'm trying to think. You can actually, for kids out there listening, I'm trying to tell my daughter this. I'm trying to get her prepared. So, you can also, if someone you don't like is, won't open the door to their dorm room or bedroom, or just take, an old manila folder, staple the sides up, fill it with shaving cream.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just slide it underneath the door crack and stomp on it.
Yeah. That was kind of the same thing we were doing with the fireplace stoker. Yeah.
I got so many other ones.
Or trash cans filled with water leaning up against the door, knock on them. And, hey, buddy, that caused a little flood.
Yeah,
once
that's
or
right.
Twice. But I was awful in college. I'm sorry, y'all. I did not mean to do that. Actually, I did. It was funny.
Our youth group at church, we just terrorized all the youth pastors.
Yeah. We toilet papered our youth pastor.
We forked a yard.
Yep. Multiple times.
Velveeta sliced cheese on his car, Oreos.
We did kitty litter for some reason. We thought that was funny. Like we saran wrapped the whole car, then put kitty litter on it. Why was that funny? I think it was because it was cheap.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You had to go by what you had.
The looks you would get going to the Walmart or the grocery store at 10 o'clock at night and buying the 7 jumbo packs of toilet paper.
Hey guys, we just and the constant joke every time was we just ate Mexican and thought that like cleared us like they actually bought it. They knew what was going to happen. It was just not. We weren't so sly as we thought we were. Oh, good times. All right, so let's go into our hot topics brought to you by Watchman Cigars. If you want a great cigar at a reasonable price, check out our friends at Watchman Cigars. All right, so you wanted to talk about the SAT adversity score. Here's our disclaimer so that no one is held responsible. All right, here we go. Go ahead, SAT adversity score.
So I'm not sure who's all following this, but I have been. So last week, the College Board is an organization that administers the SAT. The SAT is a test, standardized test that I guess what juniors and seniors take for basically entrance into college or trade school or technical school, things like that. It gives an assessment, and I believe it's 800. A perfect score is 1,600, I believe.
Yeah.
They do 800 for math and 800 for reading comprehension, I believe.
For the record, for those people that are playing at home, my score was 4.5.
Mine was Yahtzee. But so this College Board who administers the SAT has now decided to, I think I'm not sure if it's an urban legend or actually true, but I was always told you get 400 just for signing your name.
Well, yeah, I didn't complete that process either.
But anyway, so now this SAT board or the College Board is now adding 15 factors, and they're calling this the adversity score. So this adversity score, they will take a look into 3 separate environments, home, neighborhood, and school. So they will be taking in effect at home, I guess, your income level, if you're from a single-parent home, 2-parent home, or different type of...
It goes into that.
Different living arrangements, things like that.
Neighborhood, I would assume.
That's part of that also. Neighborhood will have things like socioeconomic also, crime rate, if there's any food deserts, I guess. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but these 15 factors will now play a part, assigning people, all right, well, little Johnny got an 800, but he probably could have gotten a 1,200 if he would have been in said neighborhood down the street, 2 blocks down the road. So anyway, so what's your thoughts on this going forward?
And I read a little bit of the article because it was too long. I gave up halfway through. So
you had some adversity and you didn't live up.
Sure, 100%. So to be clear, on the adversity score, I actually read the whole article, but in non-adversity, I only read half of it. I could kind of understand the process to have a little bit of background of where these kids are coming from. With that said, I think that the schools that are, because I think it's all gonna apply for the SATs, right? So colleges have the choice of either looking at it or not. It's not necessarily playing into all the colleges. They can choose what they want to do with it or not. So I don't. So and so I can kind of understand, that part. The other part is I also want to hold tight to the standards that we already have. So, for example, women going into the military, I'm okay with that if everybody is on the same level and on the same page. So if your standard is for a guy, he has to do, I'm just making numbers up, 50 pull-ups, then the woman also has to do 50 pull-ups. They've got to be judged by the same structure. And I think the same thing is with education, that if the standard is 800 to get into that college, that you should be able to make 800 on the SAT to get into the college. I do understand where people are ultimately, behind the curve if they're coming into an environment that's not good. They got bad schools. Some of those things aren't the kid's particular fault.
Sure.
It's hard to study if you don't have food in your stomach and you haven't had food in your stomach in 2 days, or you've got to watch your siblings. Dealing with a case now where dude's got to watch 3 of his siblings and he's struggling just to get done with school because he's got to deal with all that crap when he gets home. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have time to do homework. He's dealing with, siblings and whatnot. So
should the score... So if a college is looking at 2 kids, and I don't know what this score will look like. It could be it could be color based. I don't know, for all I know. I mean,
we're at red level.
Yeah. So I let's just say it's on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being 0 versus 10 being the highest.
Yeah.
So you have two candidates, come in, and one of them has a 900 with a 0 adversity score or 1 adversity score, and then you have someone who has a 7 but has an 8 or 9 on the adversity score. Should that adversity score take part in the determination of if we're going to allow that student into the school?
I don't think that it should. Mm-hmm. I think that people can at least look at it as if you've got 2 kids that have 700s, and maybe one kid has an adversity score of 5 and the other one has a diversity score or adversity score of 9, but they're both at a 700. Maybe you can say, well, that kid, is dealing with more things at home, but he's got the same SAT score. If things are comparable on your SAT score, but your adversity score may be a little higher, then I would take the adversity score kid, because they made the same SAT score. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
No, I agree. I can kind of agree with that. I just wish things would be based off of merit, because I'll be honest with you. If I got to go in for neurosurgery, I don't want someone who had an SAT score of 1,400 or a 1,200 and they had an adversity score of 10, which bumped them up, versus the guy who had a 1,600 SAT and had a 0. I'd rather have that guy. I want quality all day long. I mean,
sure.
And also, I think sometimes I wish we could free live, and my tongue would probably get in the way sometimes, but I think it's horse crap, because this isn't the real world. You go to a job application, you have 2 people who just who apply for the same job. You look for the people that have quality characteristics that you want for your employee.
Right.
You're not going to look at some stinking adversity score saying, oh, well, I guess I got to hire Johnny here because Tony here has had it better. You want the best quality employee for your nature. This isn't the real world.
And I understand that, but you also got to think these kids are growing up in an environment that more than likely is not their fault. That they're dealing with more horse crap than some of the others. That they're already behind the 8 ball on numerous issues. That they're not getting the fair shake going into it. They're already on, they're in the dugout while some kids are already on first base. So I think that everybody, if everything was perfect and everybody had an equal opportunity, then this adversity score is crap, completely crap. But I think that we don't live in the perfect world, and there are people that are just struggling just to just to eat, they're just trying to eat and much less trying to study. So maybe give them a break. Like, what if this kid that has a 9 on their adversity score goes to a college that he's able to get food and he's able to learn and he's able to apply himself and turns out to be, the best neurosurgeon on the planet?
Sure.
We don't know that, but it's not fair to that kid that is, is got a diversity score of 9, versus, a kid that's been given everything his whole life and just, flops through and just said, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to go to college. I think that kid that's trying, that really wants to pursue and do better for his life, should be given that opportunity to do so. Now, does that mean that they should automatically get into college? I mean, that's a whole nother subject, but, they should be given a chance if that opportunity is there.
I think this has the potential to be things like this start out with great intentions, always.
Right.
But they always get turned into something highly politicized. And
100% I'll agree with that.
You look at affirmative action.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, affirmative action was a plan that the government implemented to make sure that employers were hiring, I guess, race-based, to put it politely, race-based employing practices, where you had to have a certain ratio or whatever to men, women, black, Hispanic, white. That's not necessarily the best way to go at, because you may have an abundance of candidates that come in that are super qualified, but if you don't fill your quota, then you might be penalized. I mean, so the great I know people that have been directly affected by affirmative action back in the 80s. My father-in-law, a couple lawyers I know, a couple of guys I know in broadcasting. I mean, these are people that were affected. They were not allowed to be hired because at the time they had to fill an affirmative action quota. So who's to say that maybe if they would have gotten in, they would have been better off too? I mean, we can't predict the future, but I just don't. Life isn't fair. This is the survival of the fittest. I mean, if you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. I mean, you could have a adversity score of 0 and $1 million in the bank and end up penniless in 2 years. Nothing. That adversity score does not speak to the individual and what they're going to do in the future and how they handle the education, the life experience, and things like that. I think this is just another a way of politicizing economic diversity. Like, we can do something about that. Like, if we all of a sudden just said, all right, everyone in America is going to make $50,000 a year, no matter if you're a bucket washer or the lead transplant surgeon in a center. Everybody's going to make $50,000. I mean, that's ultimately their end game goal, is for us all to be being paid by the government. So, and them regulating everything. I just think that this has the potential to being strictly abused. And talking about the standard fitness, for women, if they did lower the standards like in military, then the next president who comes in, decides to lift the transgender ban. What if all of a sudden you have an influx of transgender women who, trying out for Navy SEAL Team 6 or whatever, and to be on SEAL Team 6, maybe it's 100 push-ups and 50 for women. Do the transgender women fall? Which category do they fall in? I believe in flat standards. I don't believe in having a standard for one person and then a standard for that. I think, especially like military, you want the elite of the elite people that are going to go into fight. You don't want, well, I guess we need to fill our affirmative action quota here. Yeah. I mean,
and I can understand that. I know for, just dealing with foster kids and seeing another side of things that probably I wouldn't have normally, is we're not all on the equal playing field going into public schools.
We'll never be an equal playing ground ever. I mean, ever.
Right, but it's not that kid's fault.
No, I'm not. And it's definitely not his fault.
And so
all.
I think that there needs, do your adversity score, but maybe look at how can we make education more equal at the beginning, and then you don't even have to deal with that.
Clarify that.
Like, how do we make like inner city schools more effective or more productive? How do we make sure that the kids are getting enough food, that we're training their parents how to become better parents? Like, how do we take that to the next level and make it, we're not just dropping your kids off at school as a babysitter for 8 hours, but how do we make home and education congruent? And how do we make the parents, more effective parents.
Problem is we can't. I don't care what government program that we ever develop, how much money we sink into it, it'll never happen. It's just you can't change the direction of the way this earth spins around its axis.
Sure.
You can't make sure all kids have food. You can't make sure all kids have this equal learning environment. I mean, that's the reason why we have standards now for schooling. Every school kid gets the same curriculum. You don't have like first grade learning, some of them learning multiplication and division, and the others are learning, how to work with Play-Doh. That's the reason why we have, that's the reason why we, taxpayers, we love the Department of Education and we love these school districts. Everybody has the same playing field. Now, how it gets passed down is totally different.
I mean, your classes at, Cabarrus High School is going to be different than Mecklenburg County, in the inner city.
But they're getting the same. They're getting the same. They have the same standards of what has to be taught that year.
They do, but you have way more, and I'm assuming. So forgive me if this is wrong, but I would assume you have way more distractions in an inner city school than you do in a suburban school. You have to deal with much more disruptions, problem kids, issues falling asleep than you would in a suburban school. That's my assumption. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I would think would.
But once again,
logically be.
And you're probably 100,000,000% right. There's probably a lot more factors to distraction of learning, from disciplinary to, certain people were probably passed along to the next grade just because they didn't want to see them in that grade again, and they're behind. I mean, there's probably a lot of that going on. But that's what happens when you allow the state to solely take over. The state has a monopoly on education.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love it. People that are teaching's our passion. I love this. We want the state and the government to mandate our standards. We want all the education to be in the state's hands. And then all of a sudden, this is the result we get. And we're like, well, something more has got to be done. Well, no, nothing more has to be done. Number one, we are graduating kids at alarming rates who don't need to be graduating. Yeah. Kids that need to be held back to start over. It's parents. We take an active participation, just like you do in your foster kid. Mm. We take an active participation in our kids' education. Is it more than some kids? Probably not. Is it more than others? I'm sure. Mm. Like we have families in our daughters' classes who their parents make them go home and do nightly practice drills and things like that. Does my daughter get a better adversity score because we don't? I mean,
that's a good point.
I've seen the videos where, hey, if you have two parents, take two steps forward. If you have a parent who has a job, take another. I understand all the kids have no controlling factor or controlling method of the starting line where they're placed in life.
Right.
Okay. I totally get that. And just like that kid has no control of themselves if they encounter sexual molestation or cancer or tragedy of losing a parent. There's things that we cannot control in our life. But those things, if they're rooted right, can actually lead to a stronger human being. I mean, I don't want. How many millionaire stories do you hear of someone who didn't even have a pot to piss in or even the toilet paper to fling it on, and they end up, employing thousands of people, or there's some wise investor.
Much less than the other people that are, in jail and or flipping burgers.
Yeah, I mean, we automatically assume that I shouldn't say we. There's a lot of people out there who assume that if you grow up in a poverty-stricken area with one parent and you go to a school that has a graduation rate of 18%, that you're not going to make it. We automatically assume that, and we feel like we have to be the nannies of that.
Yeah,
we don't. Sometimes, and also throwing more money at these situations don't make it better. That's where it ultimately ends up to.
Yeah. All right, so we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we will have Gary Moore. He is a flying instructor, private pilot, and what I've been told, CIA agent, but I'm not confirming or denying that. All right, thank you for listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, and you are listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. This week we have in studio Gary Moore. Gary is a flying instructor, a private pilot, and he has been cleared to buzz the tower. We're excited to have him on the show. Gary, welcome to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Of
Glad
course.
to be here.
Yeah.
Also a commercial pilot, not just private.
Oh, let me put that in my notes there.
Check.
Commercial. So you actually do the commercials yourself? Or do you have somebody else do them for you?
Any way I can talk and make money.
That's fantastic.
The commercial part just means I can make money flying an airplane.
Okay.
Not just with the airlines. That's all that means.
Okay. So I want to get into it, but how did you get started flying? At what point did you say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
That was about 3 years ago when I thought about changing careers after managing a veterinary clinic for about 14 years. And I said, it's time for something different. And started to go back into IT. And I talked to a couple of people in interviews, and they looked at me cross-eyed. You haven't done database management in 15 years. We don't think you know how to do that anymore.
Things might have changed a bit, huh?
Yeah.
Where's the floppy disk go?
Hey, now. You're talking my age now. And so I had my private pilot's license, and I said, it's time to do what I want.
Yeah.
And so I had to invest a good amount of time. Most of 2015, I spent going from the progression of being a private pilot all the way through a flight instructor, commercial pilot, instrument rating, and all that. And part of the credibility of getting a job in the aviation world is how many hours you fly. It's not the degree. It's not just having a certificate. It's how many hours have you flown.
Okay.
People might have heard you got to have 1,500 hours before you can be an airline pilot. Well, there it is. They want you to have a whole lot of experience. Just an hour of flying here and there doesn't really give you the breadth of experience.
Sure.
And so a lot of people build their hours flight instructing, and I really wanted to do that and not do anything else. That was my first desire, was because I love teaching. And teaching somebody how to fly is really cool. Because you watch them get their wings anywhere between 3 months to, a year and a half for some people. Wow. And after a while, the money isn't that great for flight instructing.
Sure.
And all these other opportunities started coming up, the airline shortage, and the salaries started going up at the airlines. It used to be 8 years ago, you could have 1,200 hours, 1,500 hours of flying time, be ready for the airlines, and you'd get a job, and you would have invested $100,000 getting all this experience.
Oh, wow.
And they would pay you $25,000 a year.
Oh, man.
That was the starting salary. Well, now it's more like
college education?
Yeah. And now it's more like 60. So it's way more attractive to people.
Sure.
And as I started to look at opportunities, I thought, if I go to the airlines, I have to retire at 65. Mandatory retirement in the airlines. And I said, well, let's look at corporate and charter jobs and see what I can do there. And so that's how I got to my present position. The main paying job is a corporate and charter pilot, and then still instruct on the side, because that's the fun part right now.
That's where your heart is. That's where your passion is. But the other one kind of pays the bills. But you really enjoy teaching people how to fly.
Absolutely.
It's probably less risky teaching students how to get down from the air safely to the ground than it is probably teaching a math class in a 12th grade for 12th grade students in a high school around here, I bet.
Well, yeah, there could be some risk in the classroom with all the stuff that we've heard going on in classrooms. But if they have some decent skills, it's not too risky. But if they're not very skilled, the risk goes up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When you're teaching people, when you take off, before you take off, do you have to put on top of your plane student flyer, or there's no distinguishing mark?
No, there's none of that.
Okay,
That would be funny.
No, and you know, one of the hallmarks of getting your private pilot's license, which is the first step, is your first solo. And especially if you're here at a place like Concord here, they have a control tower. There's a lot of places that don't have that. You send your student off, and the person in the control tower thinks it's a regular pilot. He has, unless you've talked to him ahead of time, he has no clue that this is that pilot's very first time all by himself.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, part of the instructing part is I have to be confident that I've given them all those skills that they can do whatever that controller might ask them to do in any situation. So the controllers don't really worry about that either.
How many hours do you have to have before you do your solo, or does that kind of vary on?
That really varies.
Wow.
I have had one student that was ready to solo. He soloed after flying with me for 7 hours. Wow. He was good. I mean, he didn't want to do the homework. You know, he was 19, I think. He just graduated high school.
Oh my gosh.
And he understood the airplanes, but doing the paperwork and the homework, he didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But he was good to solo. And then I have had other people that haven't soloed even after 35 hours.
So 35 is a long time.
That's a long time
to go without your solo.
Yeah. Typically, that's 12 or 15 hours of flying the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, I'd be so scared. I wouldn't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Listen,
it's kind of like the first time you drove a car with on the highway or something like that. I mean, you get. I know it's a little different, but new experiences like that, you're kind of nervous, but I mean, it becomes second nature too.
Yeah, and you know, the people that get in trouble are the ones that panic.
Yeah,
and forget what their training was. But if you just go by, okay, here's what I learned I do in this situation, and the solo works out okay, and they don't let you do that on a windy day.
Yeah.
I still tense up when I go through the drive-through and I'm not quite sure what I want, and I like freak out. I'm like, just give me the whole thing. I quit, or I just drive off. I do not handle pressure well.
That racks up the bill.
Sure, it does
exponentially.
You just drive off, don't pay for it. So, tell us a little bit about chartering. So that's a completely different thing. How does the chartering process work?
So charter is for those people that want the luxury of a lot of seating and to get someplace that they can't get normally in a short amount of time with the airlines. Now, you can go to Peachtree, DeKalb, Atlanta, Georgia. You can get there from Charlotte. Mm-hmm. You can drive 4 hours. You can drive down to Charlotte, get in an airplane. The airplane ride takes you 45 minutes, but TSA and all that takes you another 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's the drive. If you charter an airplane, you're hiring an airplane and a pilot that's qualified in that airplane, usually has lots of simulator experience, gets checked out every 6 months to make sure they're good to fly with that company. And you show up at the airport, you show your ID, and you get on the plane and you go. Wow. And so 50 minutes later, I'm down in Atlanta with those people, and they haven't spent 2.5 hours doing something they don't want to do.
Nice.
Go through TSA and take off their shoes.
Right. Yeah.
I wish that was all they did to me. Every time I fly, it's the pat down and everything.
I think they like it, to be honest with you.
I think so too.
Yeah. But who's the most famous person you've had on a charter, or can you say?
I think I can say he's a public figure. The Andy Roddick,
wow,
former pro tennis player, got to take him down to over to Tennessee and down to Georgia.
Nice.
Recently,
I've heard he's a nice guy.
He was a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy. from Tommy Boy.
No, I've heard that.
Yeah,
I think someone ran into him in a restaurant nearby here, and they just said he was very, very humble, very.
That could be. I mean, he's got friends here in Charlotte.
Who's he married to?
Mrs. Roddick.
Miss Hottie. I mean, all tennis players have hottie wives. So.
Yeah, somebody look that up for us, and then, well, no, never mind. That's awesome. And Andy Roddick, he didn't have a tennis racket.
No, they had golf clubs.
Oh, how about it? I bet he'd be good at golf, too.
Who knows?
Who,
I mean, they're
look,
tall.
You're Andy Roddick. You don't care if you're good or not.
He made his millions earlier. And he's
Brooklyn Decker.
There it is. I knew it.
What a name.
She's a McHottie.
All right, you need to put your phone down, Chief, before... Yeah, don't show me.
Wow.
Moving on. So what is the best part of your job? Either flight instructor or charter pilot. What is the best part?
The best part of the job?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the flight instructing, with the charter and corporate pilot, I get to go to lots of places. I've now been to the Bahamas 3 different times and got to stay for 4 days. Fly down, have a couple of days all to myself, and enjoy the water and the food and the sun down there, and then come back. So that's the great places. And then there's Oshkosh, Wisconsin, in the middle of January when it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit and 3 feet of snow. So that's not so great part. But the new places with the job. With the flight instruction, it's watching the students work through what they want to and get their certificates. But the best part of flying is aerobatics. That's the ticket. That's the fun.
Is that the loop-de-loops?
Yeah, the loop-de-loops, the rolls,
I'm gonna throw up just thinking
going
about
up and looking like you're losing control, but you're in total control. Taking an airplane. Okay, everybody's seen Top Gun.
Sure.
Hit the edge of the envelope, beyond the envelope. Okay, well, even without aerobatics, you can take a plane to the edge of its performance.
Mm-hmm.
You can take a car there, but not safely on the road, because if you go past the edge in a car, you've mangled somebody or yourself.
Yeah.
And, with an airplane, you can take it right up to the edge and maybe a little bit beyond, and you're still going to come out okay.
Oh, wow.
But with aerobatics, it's all about performance and energy management. So you get to do loops and go straight down. After you've done aerobatics, roller coaster's nothing.
Sure.
Any roller
sure,
coaster, top fuel up at Cedar Point, nothing.
Sure. Well, because at the end of the day that you're gonna get off that ride.
Yeah, it's
safely.
Controlled situation.
Right.
Yeah.
The airplane maybe
it's controlled in the airplane.
But you see in the news these little charter planes just something happens and they crash and burn. Is that as frequent? I mean, I see it in the news pretty regular, but it's still got to be very safe.
It is really safe, and for the most part, small planes, even single engine planes, are really safe. They rarely have catastrophic breakups like the wings falling off.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's an engine malfunctioning or running out of gas, which is poor planning.
Okay.
Most of the small plane crashes that you hear about are poor planning. There was an airplane that took off from Salisbury a couple of weeks ago, and it turned out that it was a student pilot that he was going over to Kentucky. He had absolutely no legal right to go over to Kentucky. His instructor hadn't endorsed him, but he had the keys to the airplane, and he could take off. It crashed next to the runway.
Oh no!
It had low clouds. He didn't have an instrument rating. He just messed up.
Oh wow!
So most of what you hear about is not the airplane, but the pilot that is making mistakes.
Also every airplane accident is also reported. Just imagine if we did that on the scale of car wrecks.
Oh gosh,
that is
yeah.
true.
I mean, you'd have a channel. You'd
that.
have a channel just dedicated to automobile accidents. So
that's a good point.
So they get they're newsworthy.
Yeah,
it's
if
a big thing.
If it bleed, it leads.
That's true.
That is so right.
I saw a video of a guy where both of his engines just stopped. It was a YouTube, and it just stopped, and he just glided that thing down, landed it perfectly. I was just shocked.
People think that, okay, you lose the engine, you can't go anywhere. You just became a glider. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then it's just energy management.
I'm just going to yell out, if I ever do that, I'm going to yell out, in the spirit of Sully.
I think the problem is I watch too many of the cartoons where they just stop and then they fall straight down. Yeah. I don't think that you can still glide. his Wile E. Coyote that just dropped straight down.
Part of World War II was managed by gliders. We helped win we won the war through gliders too. So just dropping troops in across enemy lines.
Yeah.
So once in a while, I get to take people up for an orientation ride. They think they might want to pursue their pilot's license, and I get to take them up for an hour. We go see Lake Norman and see the countryside, fly over their house if it's close by, and that's always newsworthy. And for the ones that display a little bit of, I don't know, they're not too reticent or not too reluctant to be up there, I'll go, well, so what do you think happens if the engine shuts off? And they go, we drop like a stone. Well, I don't turn the engine off, but I take it to idle, no power. And I go, we're still flying.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden the light bulb goes off for those people. Yes, it still flies.
It's like if a bird stops flapping wings, does it drop? Automatically.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how many times have you seen a bird just like at the beach, and just sit there and not flap a wing for half an hour, but they just still ride the air current.
Exactly.
Yeah, to be honest, and I've said this before on the show, like flying and the plane taking off is still voodoo magic to me. I don't understand the physics of it.
I think it still is magical for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's still magical for a lot of people. I mean, just because how you could put force and just a degree of an angle, this object and lift a plane full of people, that's still magical,
Sure.
I mean,
80,000 pounds lifting or more.
Defying gravity each time you do it. Now, how many times is it done a day now? I mean, quite a few.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still magical. I mean, we've all had toy planes and things like that growing up. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand the science, but I also don't want to know how they make the hot dogs either in the plants either. I'm just going to eat it.
That part you don't want to see.
Yeah.
Does it get to the point where it's just, like you said earlier, like it just becomes like driving a car? You pardon the pun, but you just kind of go into autopilot?
Close.
Yeah.
It's close. But for every flight that you do, you want to plan what you're doing.
Right.
Because we want to plan to succeed. We, as a pilot, the last thing we want to do is plan to fail. And most people don't want to plan to fail. But if you don't plan something, you're setting yourself up for failure. So, it becomes straightforward and something you can do without thinking about too much, but you still have to put some thought into every flight that you do.
Gotcha.
I mean, I do a lot of flights now where I just go to Charleston. I take off out of Salisbury, go to Charlotte, pick the people up, take them down to Charleston, come back, and it's easy. But not every flight's the same because the weather's different, all that. So you have to look at what you're going to do each day.
Sure.
What's some of the worst weather conditions, I think, out there, especially here at the South or whatever? I guess since you fly all over, but is it rain? Is it snow? I mean, what are some of the worst weather conditions?
Thunderstorms.
I guess 'cause you have the hot and cool air mixing and coming up from the ground and things like that, I guess.
Yeah, you've got such incredible air currents that are going up 6,000 feet a minute or down 6,000 feet a minute, and so much turbulence.
Yeah.
Those things can rip an airplane apart.
I'm sure.
So even the airlines avoid that. We just don't go around them.
Right.
We had a big storm system coming up out of the Gulf about 3 weeks ago, and somebody wanted to go to Mississippi, and I said, we can't get there unless we go to Pennsylvania and then back down. And he said, okay. So
make it happen.
Yeah. Ice, and ice comes in the form, even without thunderstorms, just where you might have rain way up before it gets into warmer air and becomes rain. It might be ice, and that gets on the airplane. So most airplanes that are what we call cabin class, big enough for people to sit in the back and have a dedicated cockpit, not just 4 seats clumped together.
Right.
Most of those have de-ice systems, and we still try to avoid ice.
But ice is not a friend, I would imagine.
Nope, it adds weight and robs lift.
What do you think of the new Green Deal with no airplanes? That's going to put you out of job.
I hadn't heard that part of the Green Deal.
They want to go to
did that one?
Speed Train. That was the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez plan. Part of it was they wanted to do the high speed rail and eliminate planes. So.
Which the representative from Hawaii said this is not going to work out well for us.
The interstates,
Right.
Yeah, and just imagine the first person that finds a way to hop into the tunnel and stop the train when it's doing 200 miles an hour.
Right.
Oh,
You know,
I didn't even think about that.
So it's great, but maybe not.
Maybe not. What you mentioned going to the Bahamas. What's a normal, like a flight for you? So if you pick somebody up on a charter, what do you do while they're kind of doing their thing? You said you just kind of chill out and hang out in that city or whatever and get some time to explore?
So for a corporate and charter pilot, most of the time, if we've got a day trip, we take them to the airport, and we might be there for 6-8 hours maximum.
Okay.
Occasionally longer. At some of the larger airports, they have a crew car for us. I could rent a car if I wanted to, but basically I've got to stay close to the airport, close to the airplane, because they can change their mind and say, hey, we're going to be there 2 hours early, which often happens.
I'm sorry, I'm at Disney World right now. Riding the teapots.
I'm on the top of the roller coasters. I'll be there in a couple. How about 3 hours? Can you change your plans for me?
I'm stuck in traffic.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. And then if you've got overnight trips, usually you get a car gets provided so you can get around.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. You mentioned the Bahamas. Is there any other place that you either A, you really want to go visit, or B, that you really enjoyed?
Here he answered it. Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He loves that place.
You really want to go back to that one.
3 feet of snow. Well, I mentioned Oshkosh because once a year they have the Oshkosh Fly-In, which lasts for 2 weeks, and several thousand planes go in, and people camp under the wings, and it's a big aviation expo. It's the biggest one in the USA, and it might be the biggest one in the world. And they have air shows of different types every time, and it's a big airport. They close down all but one runway. It's hard to get into, but it's a whole lot of fun. No, I haven't been yet.
Okay, so that's on the bucket list.
I've been to Sun and Fun, which is down in Florida, and that's close for me. That's close enough. Now, if I have my own airplane, if that day comes, then maybe I'll go up there and learn some more about different airplanes.
Nice. What kind of plane do you normally fly? I know the instructor one's going to be different than your charter.
Yeah. So most of the time, I'm flying what's called a Pilatus PC-12. It's a single-engine turboprop. And that's a 6-passenger, 2 crew. Usually it's only 1 pilot. We don't usually have 2 crew up front. But those 6 passengers can recline in a chair, put their feet up, the cocktail bars in the back, little restroom. We can go for 5 hours. We can put 4,000 pounds in the airplane if we want to.
We're ready to roll.
Really versatile. And I said turboprop, so there's basically a jet engine that's turning the propeller.
Okay.
And that's good for lower altitudes and 1 or 2 hour trips. You talk about a 5-hour trip, you want a jet.
Okay.
So that's my main airplane that I'm flying for work. Outside of that, Cessna 172s, Moonies, Pipers, what people see in the news, Cirrus.
Okay. Very cool. Any funny stories that have come out of either the instructing part or the charter part?
I was trying to think of those. So one story that there's a couple of them that were I think people would find these funny. One time I was taking the kids, just my boys, down to visit Grandma. We were up in Richmond, and they're down in Winston-Salem, and I pick them up from school, and I take them to Hardee's and get them a big meal. And my 6-year-old or 5-year-old then, he has this great big monster Sprite, and I say, okay, let's get in the airplane. Dad doesn't think about bathroom breaks, you know. I'm not thinking about them.
Oh no!
And fortunately, the older one, he brought a Gatorade bottle, and the younger one's sitting up front, and it's at night, and it's already dark, and my 5-year-old goes, Dad, I gotta go. We don't have bathrooms on a Cessna.
Sure,
not equipped. So I had to, pry the Gatorade bottle out of my older son's hand, empty it out the window, and say, here.
Oh, wow.
After we got home from that trip, my son would ask for a Gatorade bottle so he could go outside. I mean, come on.
I would have just let him open up the window and just let him go. Just fire it out there, Chief.
Yeah, it's hard to move around like that, depending on the window position.
Sure.
Not really any other funny stories. One time I was learning how to fly a tailwheel airplane. That's an airplane that has the middle wheel not in the front but in the back. So it's got two main gear around where you sit and, and a wheel all the way in the back. And that's how they used to make airplanes. They call that a conventional gear. And it takes certain certification because the weight, the center of gravity is different on a tailwheel airplane. Anyway, I had an instructor. He was teaching me this part, and we were going into an airport. I'd done a few landings, still getting used to the airplane and to his instruction. And he said, let's just follow that plane in for a landing. I said, okay. You know, instructor's in the back. I'm just going to do what he says. Mm-hmm. And as I was thinking, the airplane in front of us is slower than us, and we're landing. So we're coming in. We're catching up with him while he's landing.
Oh, no.
And the end result of landing is stopping and turning off the runway. Well, we're coming in, and we're 100 feet off and getting 100 feet over the ground and getting lower and lower.
Oh, no.
And this plane comes to a stop. He doesn't even turn off. And I'm going, it's time to go around. Full power. Let's go. And I'm buzzing that airplane about 25 feet over the top of it. And I'm sure the people in that airplane looked up and go, what the heck was that?
Oh, my gosh. That's got to be.
And then the man in the plane was like, do you have a Gatorade bottle?
Or a diaper?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think we can forego the Gatorade bottle.
Luckily I wore my brown pants today.
Gary, what is the process of getting your pilot's license? Like, if somebody wants to reach out to you and actually make this thing happen, what do they do?
So the first thing is a desire to be a pilot. And people do that for lots of different reasons. Now, for young people, they want to be an airline pilot. A lot of people still have that dream. They've done a little bit of work in class. They've got good grades, and they say, that's a good career, lots of adventure flying airplanes. Or recreationally. I want to use it just to have fun, or I want to use it for personal travel. And there are a lot of business owners that have their own airplane, and they utilize that airplane to get them places quickly.
Gotcha.
Because it's very efficient to get from place to place. So the process, there's several certification steps that you have to go through.
Okay.
The first step that everybody has to do is get their private pilot's license.
Okay.
And typically, you learn to fly a single-engine propeller plane that's 2 or 4 seats. It's not very heavy. It can go for 3, 4, 5 hours. You can learn all the basics with that. Become very proficient at flying in what we call visual conditions. If you can see the ground, you can go fly as a private pilot.
Okay.
And you can go to any airport. You could even fly to Charlotte. A lot of people say, you can't take a little plane into Charlotte. Well, yeah, you can. Not if it's real busy. They're going to say, stay away.
Right.
But if they're not busy, you can fly there.
Huh.
The next step is to get your instrument rating. And that's probably one of the more difficult ratings to get, but one of the more crucial if you want to travel. If it's cloudy, like this morning, the clouds were 1,000 feet off the ground. You legally can't fly very far. You can legally fly with clouds 1,000 feet off the ground, but it's not very safe. There's a lot of towers that poke up into the clouds.
Okay.
You don't have any altitude if you have an engine failure, so it's not a very safe thing to do. You can do it. So the next thing is to get your instrument rating, and that allows you to fly in weather. So if the clouds are low or you've got some rain or limited visibility, you can use your instruments and go from airport to airport.
Okay.
And perfect, just as safe as going in visual conditions once you learn that. So then you've gained those really good skills.
You mean you can't just fly up there and then turn on your Google Maps and just let it take you there?
You can. One, not legally. And,
Sure.
You asked about the risk. Probably the single most killing incident is a private pilot that's not instrument rated, thinking he can fly into the clouds. Okay, the visibility gets really low. You get spatially disoriented within about a minute. And then you go into a spiral dive and you become a statistic like John F. Kennedy Jr. Because that's exactly what happened to him. It's spatial disorientation, and it happens in a heartbeat.
It's like the Bermuda Triangle of flying.
Yeah, but we know what's happening there.
Sure.
not in the triangle.
Right.
And then you got to get your commercial certificate.
Okay.
And to get that, you've got to have flown at least 250 hours. You don't have to have your instrument rating, but it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And after you're a commercial pilot, after you get that commercial rating, then you can start making money. There's not many jobs because you're not very experienced. But you can be a banner tow pilot. You can be a parachute jump pilot, take people up and down all day long. The fun there is racing the parachutists down to see if you can land before they get down. And build your hours.
Okay.
After that, you can become a flight instructor if you want to. You can get your multi-engine rating, so you can fly 2-engine or more airplanes.
Okay.
And after that, to become an airline pilot, you have to get your airline transport pilot certificate. And that's then a big step. You have to go to ground school. You have to be in a simulator that simulates something like small regional jets.
Okay.
Before you can even take the written test. Then you can take a written test and a check ride in, say, a jet, and you become an airline transport pilot. Then you can work for the airlines.
Wow. That's a long process.
Yeah. You have to have 1,500 hours to get that far. So that's 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
When do you get the nickname and the helmet with the nickname on it? At what point is that?
Well,
that's when the guy comes to your high school and says, "Hey, would you like to be in the Air Force?"
Exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
man.
So yeah, and you don't get to. Somebody picks that name for you.
Yeah, of course.
You don't get to pick your own call
Yeah,
sign.
that's what. Do you have a call sign?
No.
No. Man, we need to get him one. That'd be awesome. One of the last questions. And this is serious as I could be. Have you seen any UFOs up there?
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
For real?
I didn't know what they were, so they're on a UFO.
Ah, he got me. He got me.
Is that a plane or a jet?
probably balloons from somebody's birthday party.
Could be a helium balloon with a light bulb inside.
But have you seen anything like strange? Like you're like,
No.
what in the world?
No, I've seen a lot of comets, meteorites, not comets, meteorites. Seen a lot of those, and because when you're up there on a clear night, and night times are wonderful to fly in. The winds are calmer, they're not turbulent. The vista's totally different, but seeing meteorites come in
That'd
from
be cool.
140 miles away is really cool.
Nice. The other question Mojo had was, can he film a rap video in front of your jet?
Absolutely.
All right, we got that one.
Do you want the prop turning or not?
I just got to learn how to rap first.
Well, we can set it up so 1,500 hours of rap teaching.
I want to
learning, and we could do that.
Get my certification.
I want to see a real fast 2,000 RPM rap song go. Keep pace with the propeller.
So, Gary, if somebody is interested in wanting to learn how to fly, how do they get in contact with you, and how do they make that happen?
Well, I still work with a flight school at Concord Regional Airport called Alpha One Air Service.
Okay.
They have a newer airplane, a carbon fiber type airplane, which with new avionics, so it's modern. They also have a few older classic airplanes like a Piper. They have a full-time instructor, a couple of full-time instructors, and some part-time instructors like me. And if you're just curious, sign up and take an orientation flight.
Okay.
Lasts an hour, costs $150, $160, something like that, and you get to see, okay, I can do this or not. And they can lead you through the ground school that's required and stuff like that. It's an investment.
Mm-hmm.
To get your private pilot certificate is probably going to cost you anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000 maybe.
Okay.
Unless you're one of those that don't solo until you're at 35 hours, then it might cost you $40,000.
Okay. The quicker you learn, the cheaper it is.
Absolutely.
Got it.
And people don't realize how crucial that is because flying is a expiring skill. It goes away. And as you're learning those skills, you want to repeat them at least once a week. People that fly, when they're learning to fly, if you can go twice a week, find some way, even at night, to fly, your skills are going to stay up and you're going to be able to build on those skills. But if you take a year and a half and only fly once every other week, you're not going to solo until much later. You're not going to get. You're going to spend $15,000-$20,000 getting that license.
Wow! So you got to commit. If you're going to do it, you got to commit.
Absolutely.
Got it. And so they get in contact with you by calling
Alpha One Air Service.
Alpha One Air Service. Okay, awesome.
And they have a website.
Okay.
Just spell it like that.
We'll put the link out on our show notes so you can check it out there and ask for. Do they ask for Gary?
They can ask for Gary. I'm probably not going to be available, but Matt's there. He can help out.
Okay.
They have some good instructors, but they can ask for me, and I can at least maybe do the orientation ride. Who knows?
Awesome. Cool.
Mention Gary, and your orientation ride's only $200.
I love Mojo.
Awesome. Well, Gary, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Wow. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So that was Gary. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I still don't think he's telling me the truth about the UFOs, but I could be completely wrong.
He might be sworn to secrecy.
He may be. All right. So that's our show. Thanks for tuning in.
Good. Please go to our website at southernfriedphilosophy.com. You can also go to our Facebook page at Southern Fried Philosophy. Our Instagram and Twitters at the old at SFP Radio. I'm sorry. Wow, I can't ever remember that one. YouTube.com/SFP Radio. Our favorite way to connect, and that's how other people find us, is please go to one of those podcast apps that you use, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spotify, whatever you use. Just put in the old Southern Fried Philosophy. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, the heart, subscribe, whatever it is. Give us a review also. Rate us. We'd really appreciate that.
Yeah. And don't forget our friends over there at States Vegas Radio. If you want to download their app, you can get that this week only. It's free.
Just for our listeners.
Just for our listeners. Go to the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store, download the States Vegas Radio app, and then we are on Mondays at 6 p.m. and then again at Friday at 4 p.m. So you can check out our show there as well. We did get a message from a Alabama.bound on Instagram after we posted our 100th episode. And I just want to give a shout out. She said, "You're all my favorite podcast. I look forward to hearing you every Monday." And just want to say thank you for the encouragement. It's great to get that feedback.
Thanks, Mom. I appreciate you finally posting. I'm just kidding.
I'm still waiting for my dad to be a Patreon subscriber one of these days.
Does he even know what podcasts are?
No.
Okay.
He doesn't. Right. But he listens every week. So shout out
to the radio.
All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. And as always, keep looking up. This week on the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, a brewery offers a reward for their stolen van. Figure out how long it's going to take to... This week on the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, a brewery offers a reward to find their stolen van. We talk about the SAT adversity score and our special guest, Gary Moore, flying instructor and commercial private pilot. All that and more on this episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. Here we go.